Meanwhile, on the health side of this, the United States averaged more than 1,000 deaths from coronavirus for the 9th straight day yesterday. The number from the virus here in the U.S. now approaching 160,000 deaths. Meanwhile, the president continues to cherry-pick data to downplay the death toll here in the U.S. Here's the president yesterday, questioned by NBC's Shannon Pettypiece.
You've talked a lot about, when you talk about the mortality rate, the deaths as a proportion of cases, which I understand that is significant when you look at how deadly the virus is or how good a country does at keeping people alive who get infected. But when you're talking about the scope of this virus, when you look at the percentage of the population that's died, there's only 3 countries that have more deaths than the U.S. So how do you explain that why the percentage of the population who's died is so much higher in the U.S.?
Well, I think actually the numbers are lower than others. I'll get back to you on that, but we proportionately are lower than almost all countries. We're at the bottom of the list. And we're, relative to cases also, we're at the bottom of the list, which is a good thing being at the bottom of the list. But I can get back to you. We have about 4 or 5 different lists on that, and we're generally speaking at the very bottom of the list.
You don't have to wait for the president to get back to you. We'll show you the actual numbers in just a moment. But first, here's the exchange the president had a couple of days ago with Jonathan Swan of Axios on this issue.
Because we are so much better at testing than any other country in the world, we show more cases.
The figure I look at is death. And death is going up now. Okay, and it's 1,000 a day.
If you look at death...
Yeah, it's going up again.
Let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death...
Yeah. It's started to go up again.
Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world?
Lower than
what is that?
Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the U.S. is really bad.
Well,
much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
You can't do that. You have
Why can't I do that?
You have to go by... You have to go by where, look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why not as a proportion of population?
When we have somebody, what it says is when you have somebody that has it, where there's a case, the people that live from those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the U.S. has X population and X percentage of death of that population versus South Korea.
You have to go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea, for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy.
You don't know that.
I do. It's
you
on
don't know that.
You think they're faking their statistics? South Korea?
I won't get into that because they have a very good relationship with the country. But you don't know that. And they have spikes. Look, here's
Germany low, 9,000.
Here's one right here, United States. You take the number of cases.
Okay.
Now look, we're last, meaning we're first.
Last? I don't know what we're first in. As a what?
Take a look. Again, it's cases. And we have cases because of the testing.
1,000 Americans are dying a day, but I understand on cases it's different.
No, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but...
If you take a look at this other chart, look, this is our testing, I believe. This is the testing,
Yeah, we do more tests.
No, wait a minute. Well, don't we get credit for that? And because we do more tests, we have more cases. In other words, we test more. We have. Now, take a look. The top one, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. But the top, Jonathan.
If hospital rates were going down and deaths were going down, I'd say terrific. You deserve to be praised for testing, but they're all going up.
You know, they very rarely talk.
60,000 Americans are in hospital.
If you watch the news
dying
or
a
read
day.
the papers, they usually talk about new cases, new cases, new cases.
I'm talking about death.
Well, you look at
it's going up.
Death is way down from where it was.
It's 1,000 a day. It was 2,500. It went down to 500. Now it's going up again.
Excuse me. Where it was is much higher than where it is right now.
It went down and it went up again.
But now it's going down again. It's going down in Arizona. It's going down in Florida.
Nationally,
it's going down in Texas. Take a look at this. These are the tests.
It's going down in Florida?
Yeah, it leveled out and it's going down. That's my report as of yesterday.
All right. Let's suss through this. When the president says we're at the bottom of the list, he's referring to the number of deaths in proportion to the number of cases in the United States. On that list, the U.S. still has the 14th highest number of deaths out of the 20 countries currently most affected by COVID-19 around the world. But the CDC, as you know, defines the mortality rate as the number of deaths compared to the population. Here we find the U.S. has the fourth highest death rate per 100,000 people out of those top 20 countries. Only United Kingdom, Peru, and Chile have a worse number. To frame it another way, the U.S. is just 4% of the world's population, but represents 22% of the world's COVID-19 deaths. So, Shauna Thomas, that was a painful clip to watch. Obviously, the president was reeling there. But the CDC, I just want to underline again, so we're very clear because there's so much misinformation that's flying around right now. The CDC defines the deaths as a percentage of the population when it talks about the death rate, not as the number of reported cases.
Yeah, I think, number one, I do want to give some credit to Axios and Jonathan Swan for being able to grasp the information that the president was handing him in paper form and actually create the argument that he did in that clip. And I'm sure HBO is very happy you just played basically almost the whole episode. But I think the thing that I keep coming back to from an analytical perspective is that you don't really want to see the president arguing about which death rate is the better death rate, especially when we have the number of cases and the number of deaths we're having. And you pointed out that the average for the 9th day in a row is over 1,000 Americans dying from COVID-related problems. So the thing is, the president doesn't actually, I mean, a president in general, when doing an interview like this, doesn't actually need to engage in this tit for tat. It is really, really easy to change the perspective of that conversation and come at it from the idea of that, and this president has said that before, that there are too many deaths in this country and we need to fix the problem, and the ways we go about fixing the problem and opening up the government. Because the fact that he's even engaging in that actually makes him look lesser in some ways. And that isn't the way necessarily to run a White House. That isn't the way to run a campaign. There's nothing from that interview that they can turn into a campaign ad. But overall, it doesn't necessarily show that the president has compassion for people. And the more people who get sick and the more people who die and the more people who know someone who dies, you look at something like that and you start to think the president may not understand what I'm going through. And one of the biggest things he can do right now, and I don't know if he has this ability, but one of the biggest things he can do right now is actually show compassion for people and then turn to Congress and tell them, hey, you need to get something done to at least make people's lives a little bit better in this terrible situation.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.